My sister's wedding receptions were warm, loud, and full of exactly the kinds of laughters that make a room feel like it belongs to everyone. The ballroom in Nashville was beautiful, string lights across the ceiling, white linen tablecloths, a DJ who read the ground perfectly. I was sitting near the back when he tapped the microphone and announced a special family slideshow the bridal party has prepared. People clapped. Someone near the front let out an excited whistle. The first few slides were harmless. Frog a toddler, Frog and Derek at prom, a family photo from Thanksgiving, everyone smiling. Then the tone shifted. A new slide appeared, white text on the dark background. Most likely to disappoint. Below it, a photo of me at 16, arms crossed. A few guests laughed. The careful kind, not sure if they should. Relax, Rose said lightly from a head table. It's just for fun. My mother Linda swore her wine. My father Frank smiled like I was overreacting before I even reacted. I didn't say a word. I reached my phone, opened the message threads I've been keeping ready all evening, and typed one word. Go. Then I set the phone face down and folded my hands in my lap. Because here's the thing about being a family joke. After enough years, you stop being surprised. You just start planning ahead. Growing up, Brooke with the golden trials in every sense. Once I switched her college major 4 times, my parents called it fighting herself. When I chose engineering, they called me too rigid. When Brooke with a job she hated, they called her brave. When I worked double shifts to pay up debt, they said I have no life. Every family dinner came with the same script: small dates, little comments, always wrapped in the joke, so that if I reacted, I was the one being sensitive. For years, I smiled through it. I stayed quiet. I show up anyway. But sitting in that Nashville ballroom was another slide loaded. Still figuring it out in 2009, I made a quiet decision. For the last time, I let them laugh. I almost hadn't come. 6 months ago, when Brooke sent the invitations, I sat with it on my kitchen counters in Austin for 3 days before RSVPing. Part of me knew exactly how the evening would go. Another part, the part that has been hoping for 31 years, thought maybe a wedding would be different. Maybe something about the occasion would soften things. Maybe my parents would finally look at me and see a daughter's instead of a punchline. So I booked the blind. I bought a dress. I show up, smiled through the ceremony, hugged Linda and shook Frank's hand and told her she looked genuinely beautiful. Because she did. And then the slideshow started. By the third slide, my phone buzzed softly. A message from my best friend Jade, sitting 2 tables over, her laptop bag tucked beneath her chair. They just hit slide 4. Should I wait longer? I looked at the screen. A new caption has appeared beneath another photo of me. The vlog trees no one asked for. Brooke's roommate leaned over and whispered something that must work over her mouth with the back of her hand. I typed back without hesitating. No, go now. I set the phone down, straightened my back, picked up my water glass, and took a slow sip. No one was watching me. They were on watching the screen, waiting for the next slide, ready to laugh again. Frank has his arm across the back of Linda's chair. Linda was smiling the way she always did when she felt comfortable. Easy, uncomplicated, like everything was exactly as it should be. For the last time, I thought, they have absolutely no idea what's coming. The large screen behind the stage flickered. The slideshow from Miss Frame. The music cut down. A confused murmur moved through the crowd. Someone in the crowd said, "Uh-oh," in a choking tone. It's expecting a technical glitch. The screen went black. For a few seconds, the entire ballroom was silent in the way that only happens when something unexpected has taken the air out of the room. Then the screen lit up again. But what appeared next was not part of Brooke's wedding program. White state, dark background, one sentence. Before tonight's jokes continue, a few things the room should know. The murmur died. People shifted in their seats. The next slide appeared. A photo of me at 23 standing outside my parents' house in a winter coat, holding a stack of envelopes. Below it, a single line of text. Worked 2 jobs to cover the family mortgage for 16 months after Frank was let off. The room went still. My father sat up straighter. A few guests near his table turned to look at him. The next slide, a screenshot of bank transfer. 825 contributed $21,000 toward Ruth's college tuition when a student loan fell short. Someone near the back said, "What?" in a low voice. Ruth's smile had disappeared entirely. She was staring at the screen with an expression I have never seen on her face before. Something between confusion and something that might have been shame. The next line, a text message read, my mother's name at the top. Nora, we really need help again this month. Below it, a bank confirmation. Transfer amount $4,200. Lena set down her wine glass. She didn't pick it up again. Another slide. A photograph of my parents' house, clean lines, fresh band. A sound of that sign in my memory, even if not in the image. 827. Paid up $14,000 in remaining mortgage balance so Frank and Linda could retire without debt. A guest near the center of the room whispered something to the person beside her. No one was laughing. No one was looking at the red table anymore. Then the final slide loaded. A scanned document filled the screen. At the top, the venue's logo. Below it, a payment receipt. Several people leaned forward to read it more clearly. Wedding venue deposit. Paid in full. Name on the account, Nora Cardwell. Amount, $18,000. A second document appeared beside it. Catering deposit, paid in full. Name on account, Nora Cardwell. Amount, $6,500. Total, $24,500. One final line appeared beneath the receipts. It stayed on the screen long enough for every person in that ballroom to read it twice. The woman you just laughed at have paid for tonight. The room was so quiet you could hear the hum of the projector. Frank was staring at the floor. Linda had her napkin pressed flat against the table with both hands, smoothing it over and over. Brooke hadn't moved. Her mouth was slightly open. Derek had his hand on her arm, but she wasn't responding to it. Guests who had left 20 minutes ago were now looking at their place. A few were shaking their heads slowly. The shift in the room was total. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet and complete rearrangement of everything everyone thought they understood about the family. I slowly pulled back my chairs and stood up. Every eye in the room turned toward me. The microphone was still on its stand near the stage, right where the DJs had left it. I worked toward it steadily, not quickly, not slowly. My heels were quiet on the hardwood floor. I picked up the microphone. For a moment, I just looked around the room, at the guests, at the string lights, at my father still looking at the floor, at my mother who had finally stopped smoothing her napkin, at Brooke, who was watching me with an expression I couldn't fully read. Then I spoke. I didn't plan to say anything tonight. I said, my voice was calm. I echoed softly through the ballroom. I came here because I still believe in this family, because some part of me always does. No one interrupted. The room held its breath. For years, I've been the shock, the disappointment, the plot twist no one asked for. I let the words land without rushing past them. I stayed quiet because I thought silence was the kindest thing I could offer. I thought if I just worked harder, helped more, show up without complaint, maybe eventually things would change. I looked at my parents' table. Frank has finally lifted his eyes. Linda was looking at me now, really looking, maybe for the first time in years. Tonight make something very clear, I said. This was never going to stop on its own. I took a breath. So it isn't revenge. It isn't a scene. It's just the truth. The part that never made it into the slideshow. I turned toward Fro, still crying quietly. Derek has his arm around her now. I gently hugged you and Derek with something beautiful, I said, and I mean it. I mean that more than you know. I placed the microphone back on the stand. But this is the last event where I sit quietly while people tie me into a punchline. I stepped down from the stage. No one called after me. No one said a word. The only sound in the room was my heels on the floor as I walked toward the exit, steady and unhurried, like a woman who has already decided everything she needed to design. The night air in Nashville hit me the moment I pushed through the door, cool and still. It breezed carrying the faint smell of the river a few blocks away. The parking lot glowed under tall amber lamps. Cheese were leaning against her car, arm grasped, waiting. She didn't say anything. She just opened her arms and I walked into them. And we stood there for a long moment without speaking. Then we got into the car. You okay? She asked finally. I thought about it honestly. I think I've been okay for a while, I said. I just didn't know it yet. My phone lit up on my lap. My mother's name on the screen. I watched it ring twice, then blazed face down on the seat beside me. Not out of anger. I set the phone down not because I was furious, but because I had nothing left to explain. Everything that needed to be said has already been on the screen. I thought about the years behind me. Working double shifts at 23 while my parents' mortgage fell behind. Worrying money at midnight. Saying yes every time I called with a new emergency. Like they would make jokes at holiday dinners about how I still hadn't figured my life out. I wasn't the family disappointment, I thought. Watching the Nashville skyline pass HJ pulled onto the highway. I was this family foundations, and tonight I stopped haunting up the ceiling. Chase turned on the radio. Something slow and familiar filled the car. Neither of us talked, and the silence felt more like rest than anything I felt in years. 3 months passed. No calls from Frank, no emails from Linda. A silence that used to feel like punishment, but now just felt like weather. Something that existed outside of me. Something I could let pass without standing in it. I signed a lease in a new apartment in East Austin. 1 bedroom, a small balcony, more light than I had in years. I chose every piece of furniture myself, slowly, entirely according to what I actually wanted. Frank eventually sends an email, short, stiff. What should this embarrass the family in front of everyone who matters to us? I wrote a long response, read it twice, then deleted it and tried 5 words. I hope you're well, Frank. 6 weeks after the wedding, from Texas. I've been thinking. I didn't know about the money. Mom and Dad never told me. I sat with that for a long time. Then I wrote back, I know. That part will never learn about you. She replied, can we talk sometime? Just us. Maybe, not yet, but maybe. I started going to a Thursday night support group, adults who has run off filling invisible rounds in complicated families. The first week, I sat in the back and listened. The second week, someone asked if anyone else has been the one their family called for everything, while also being the one they talked about at every dinner. I raised my hand before I even decided to. On a Tuesday evening in October, I sat on my balcony with a cup of coffee and watched East Austin move and hum below me. I opened my journal and wrote one line. Love that only shows up when the bills are paid isn't love, it's a transaction, and I'm done being the bank. I closed the journal, finished my coffee. I hadn't walked away from my family that night in Nashville. Walking away implies running from something. What I did felt quieter than that and more deliberate. I had simply worked toward myself. And for the first time in 31 years, that felt like exactly enough.